Elizabeth was very nervous, and Gloria noticed it. Gloria couldn't understand the main reason for her cousin's nervousness. Elizabeth, is there something you wanted to tell me? Gloria started the conversation. Tell me. Don't keep it inside. I have to tell you, Elizabeth nodded. We're going abroad. Well, cool. Congratulations. Gloria relaxed. That's great. What resort are you going to, and for how many days? Elizabeth raised her red eyes to her cousin and shook her head. At the same time, some crooked smile appeared on her lips. It was a very sad smile, far from the joyful anticipation of the journey ahead. No, Gloria, you misunderstood me. We're not going abroad for a vacation. Gloria stared at Elizabeth and slowly began to understand the meaning of what her cousin had said. Not on vacation? Then what for? To get treatment or something? Then explain to me why you're going abroad? We're moving abroad, permanently. Elizabeth's voice trembled again, as if trying to hold herself back from bursting into tears. Gloria dropped her shoulders. Moving? Abroad? But why? Elizabeth couldn't stand the tension, got up from the couch, and started walking around the room. Her 3-year-old daughter came out of the other room, holding a doll. Mom, look! Stacy gave it to me. Great doll, Elizabeth replied aloofly, then slightly pushed her daughter in the direction of the room where her daughter was playing with dolls with Gloria's daughter. Honey, why don't you go and play? I have to talk to Aunt Gloria seriously. The girl frowned and went back into the room. Elizabeth followed her daughter and closed the door to the room so the children wouldn't hear anything. Then she sat down next to her sister on the couch. You know my Andrew is already living abroad. I can't let him live there alone. I have to be there. I mean, you know him. No, I don't, Gloria answered honestly. What are you talking about? Elizabeth shrugged. Well, I can't trust him. I mean, he left his fiancée for me. My daughter and I have to live with him. There are a lot of beautiful single girls there. Who knows what might happen while he lives alone in a foreign country? Elizabeth, but your mom is ill. Are you going to leave her and go to the other side of the world? By the way, does Aunt Megan know about your plans? Elizabeth nodded and suddenly cried. Gloria realized that her cousin's decision to move to another country had not been easy, but she lived off her husband, who made good money, so she couldn't leave him. It meant that Aunt Megan would be left alone in her homeland without the care and help of her only daughter. My mom already knows, Elizabeth replied quietly. She was shocked, but what can she do? She knows she can't convince me to change my mind. Gloria remained silent. She knew that Elizabeth didn't have a choice. If she stayed home with her mother and daughter, hundreds of miles away from her husband, who had decided to start a business in another country and hated his homeland, she would lose the financial stability and beautiful life Andrew has given her. No, Elizabeth was too weak to dare to separate from her husband. But you came to me for a reason, didn't you? Gloria asked. Elizabeth had not been visiting her for several months. She and her family had been traveling the world. Her husband Andrew had stayed abroad, while Elizabeth and her daughter had returned home. It turns out that they came back temporarily, and Gloria didn't even know that Andrew hadn't returned at all. I came for a reason, Elizabeth confirmed. Please take care of my mom. I have no one else to ask for help. Aunt Lily lives far away. Besides, she and Mom are at odds. In this town, we only have you and your family. Elizabeth burst into loud sobs again, and all Gloria could do was put her arm around her sister's shoulders and speak in a comforting tone. Gloria's mom was Aunt Megan's sister. They had stopped communicating a long time ago. Gloria's mother lived with her second husband and son in the capital city, while Aunt Megan stayed in their town. Aunt Megan was 10 years older than Gloria's mother. She had given birth to Elizabeth late, and now Elizabeth was 32, and Aunt Megan was over 70 years old. Gloria's mother was 10 years younger, had an active lifestyle, played sports, married a man 7 years younger than her, and even had a second child. Aunt Megan was the opposite of her sister, a quiet, slow, detail-oriented woman who never traveled, loved her work, and was constantly sick. By the time Aunt Megan was 65, she had been diagnosed with cancer, underwent a long and difficult treatment, was disabled, and since then exhausted by the disease and worries about her daughter. She had lived a very miserable life, and now her only daughter and granddaughter have decided to go to the other side of the world, leaving her alone. What should I do? Gloria asked, and added, considering that your mom is at odds with my mom, you have to keep in mind that Aunt Megan might refuse my help. She's certainly not going to refuse help, Elizabeth replied, wiping away her tears. You know how kind my mom is. She stopped being resentful or mad at Aunt Lily a long time ago. I don't know what was the reason they were fighting, but I know for sure it had nothing to do with you and me. Gloria, will you help me? I can't leave the country with a heavy heart. Gloria sighed. Elizabeth couldn't leave the country with a heavy heart? She could abandon her sick mother, but she couldn't leave with a heavy heart. Of course, Elizabeth had a conscience, but it hid behind the fear of losing her husband and financial freedom. After all, Andrew was making good money, so Elizabeth couldn't refuse to go to the other side of the world. I think you'll be worried anyway, Gloria said. I'll do my best to make Aunt Megan's life comfortable, but you know I can't replace you, especially since we live on opposite sides of town. I work a lot, and I have a husband and 2 kids. I understand, Elizabeth said and took Gloria's hands. Girl, we're sisters. I don't have anyone closer than you. Gloria smiled indulgently. Elizabeth knew how to play different roles, and right now, she was playing the role of a loving and obedient sister who needed help and would do anything to get it. After her sister left, Gloria had a terrible urge to take a shower. She felt as if she was covered in mud after her conversation with Elizabeth. It was too unpleasant for Gloria. She felt sorry for Aunt Megan, who needed constant care and medical supervision. Gloria knew that her aunt had a full checkup with the doctors every 2 to 3 months, and it required a lot of time and money. Maybe Elizabeth was right to stay with her husband. Otherwise, where would she get the money to provide decent medical care for her mom? Elizabeth is going abroad? Gloria's husband, who just came home from work, asked. And you said yes to this? Elizabeth will enjoy her life, relax on the beach, eat exotic fruits, and you will nurse her sick mother? Alex, she's not a stranger to me. She's my aunt, Gloria said, looking at her husband. It's up to you, her husband shrugged. But I'm not going to help her. I'm not going to drive her to the hospital, pay for her treatment, or drive across town to bring her something. She has a daughter. I'm not asking you to help. Gloria looked at her husband a little resentfully. I'm not asking you to do anything at all. I just inform you that I'll go to my aunt's a few times a week. Okay, you can do that, Alex shrugged again. Just don't forget to put gas in the car regularly, and don't forget to cook for me too. Gloria pressed her lips together. She suddenly felt resentful, and she was also tormented by the prejudice against Elizabeth, who would now pack her bags and go to her rich husband in a warm country for a few months, or even years. On Friday, Gloria drove Elizabeth and her daughter to the airport, where she met Aunt Megan. It seemed that Megan had gotten even more skinny and looked very sad. The woman kept crying and cuddling up to her daughter, and it made Gloria's heart clench. How could she help the poor mother when her only daughter decided to go to her husband and leave her mother alone? What was Elizabeth thinking, leaving her mother thousands of miles away? Did she even offer her mother to go with her? After the airport, Gloria drove Aunt Megan home. All the way home, the elderly woman sobbed and talked about how fast children grow up and that her granddaughter would forget her grandmother soon. Aunt Megan, you have to stop being sad. Gloria tried to speak in a cheerful voice. They didn't leave forever. Who knows? Maybe they won't like life in another country and they will come back soon. Gloria tried to comfort her crying aunt. Something inside tells me I won't see my granddaughter or Elizabeth again. Gloria became even more worried about her aunt. Her reasoning was too gloomy. Please, don't talk nonsense like that. Pulling up to Megan's house, Gloria said, I'll stop by on Friday. Send me a list of the groceries you need in a message. And yet my son-in-law is a coward, the aunt said suddenly, shocking Gloria. He hates his country. He's just a coward who took my daughter and granddaughter away from me. With those words, Aunt Megan slammed the car door loudly and walked toward the front door. Gloria looked at her aunt and realized it wasn't going to be easy for her and her family. Gloria hadn't gotten a message from her aunt by Friday, so she called her after lunch. Aunt Megan, I plan to visit you today, but you still haven't sent me a list of groceries. I had forgotten about it, Megan replied, and I don't need anything. Elizabeth bought a lot of stuff before she left. Still, write a list of what you're running out of, Gloria insisted. Sugar, milk, maybe some medicine. No, I don't need anything, Auntie replied, but Gloria promised to stop by today and check on her aunt anyway. On the way to her aunt's, Gloria was stuck in a traffic jam for almost an hour, but managed to stop at the grocery store and buy milk, cottage cheese, and yogurt for Aunt Megan. The dairy products were joined by bread, cheese, sausage, and fresh vegetables. Gloria paid for all the purchases with her own money. She and Elizabeth didn't discuss the possible expenses. Aunt Megan's house was untidy. Only houses of alcoholics or immobilized people who didn't have the physical ability to clean up looked like this. It took Gloria half an hour to clean up, wash the dishes, and make a vegetable salad. Aunt Megan's refrigerator was empty. It seemed to Gloria that Auntie hadn't eaten anything. Aunt Megan finished the salad quickly with 2 large slices of bread. Looking at her aunt, Gloria was silent, but her mind was full of questions about how Aunt Megan had existed all week and why she hadn't called and asked for help. When were you at the store? Gloria asked. I don't remember, Aunt Megan replied, and handed her niece her phone. Look, Elizabeth sent me a picture of my granddaughter. It seems to me that she's already grown and changed. No, the girls only left 6 days ago. Gloria smiled tensely. Gloria didn't like the way her aunt looked or the way her house looked. It looked like Aunt Megan hadn't bathed since Elizabeth left, and the empty refrigerator and the woman's appetite made her niece anxious. A few days later, in a phone conversation with her mother, Gloria honestly told that Elizabeth moved to another country and left her sick mother alone with no help or support. I can't believe it! How could she? Gloria's mother said. She abandoned her mom and ran away to her husband? And now what? Now you have to take care of Megan? Mom, I'm not complaining, Gloria immediately replied. I'm just letting you know. But to tell you the truth, I don't like the way Aunt Megan lives. Her house is a mess, she doesn't go to the store, she doesn't bathe, and she looks terrible. Darling, don't you think you don't owe anything to Elizabeth or Megan? You have your own family. Take care of your kids and husband. You don't have to take care of Megan. Mom, I can't abandon her, Gloria replied, though she realized she was creating unnecessary obligations for herself with her words. From then on, she visited her aunt 3 or 4 times a week. She cleaned, cooked, took out the garbage, bathed Aunt Megan, brushed her hair, and talked to her doctor. It turned out that Megan needed to take her medication regularly, but Elizabeth didn't say a word about it. Every time she visited Aunt Megan, Gloria discovered new details about what she needed to do or buy for her aunt. Elizabeth called her cousin about once a week, and at first, Gloria didn't tell her sister that she was having a hard time taking care of her aunt. Elizabeth hid many things and even lied about some of them. Initially, Gloria thought it wouldn't take much effort, time, or money to help Aunt Megan, but it turned out to be different. I have to bathe Aunt Megan, clean her house, feed her, Gloria told Elizabeth a month after her cousin left. Wouldn't it be better to find a nurse who will take care of my mom every day? Elizabeth asked. Elizabeth, who's going to do it? Who's going to look for a nurse to do the interviews? Me again? Gloria clarified. How can I find a nurse when I'm abroad? Do you think I can interview the candidates over the phone? Don't be ridiculous. Just find a nurse and I'll pay for her services. Gloria didn't mention that she had spent a lot of money over the past month taking care of her aunt, but Elizabeth never asked if Gloria needed money. She never even asked about where her mother got her groceries from, how much Gloria spent on gasoline driving to her aunt's house every day, and how much her doctor's appointments and medications cost. Elizabeth decided to leave all these problems to her cousin. Soon, this whole situation began to annoy Alec. You spend too much time with your aunt. I have to cook for the kids myself, pick them up from after-school activities, and all you do is spend time with your aunt. Gloria, the kids will soon forget what you look like. Honey, but what am I supposed to do? She will not survive without me. I can't leave her, and she has no one else. You have your own family, Alex said angrily. Why did Elizabeth leave her mother and run off to her husband, and your husband is left alone without you because of your aunt? Sometimes at night, Gloria let herself cry. She felt sorry for Aunt Megan, for herself, and for her children, who lacked her attention. Gloria was angry at her sister, at her indifference and her carefree life in a warm country with a rich husband. Gloria couldn't abandon Aunt Megan. The woman became attached to her, and Aunt Megan had no one but her niece. When Gloria finally ran out of strength and was about to give up on helping her aunt, her mother Lily arrived in their town. She came for a month and began to take care of her sister, giving her daughter a chance to have a break. Gloria breathed a sigh of relief because now she could finally take care of herself and her family. The sisters had reconciled before Lily left for the capital, and a month after Gloria's mother left for the capital, Aunt Megan was hospitalized. The hospital was close to Gloria's home, and now she didn't have to drive to the other side of town. But that didn't make things better. Diapers, medications, paying for the nurse, now it was Gloria's responsibility again. Elizabeth transferred money to Gloria a couple of times, but it was not enough to cover all the expenses for Megan's treatment. The situation was getting more and more complicated. Lily began to help Gloria financially, and even Alex started giving money for medicine and helping Aunt Megan, but there was still not enough money. I don't understand why you don't come to see your mother, Gloria said angrily, talking to Elizabeth on the phone. Your mom is getting worse, and you just continue to enjoy life and pretend like it has nothing to do with you. Do you think my life is easy? Elizabeth cried into the phone. Andrew won't let me go. Do you know what he told me? If I go back to my homeland, he'll divorce me. Gloria became even more angry. Gloria looked at Aunt Megan, who was hoping her daughter and granddaughter would come to visit her, and it made her feel bad. Aunt Megan was discharged from the hospital a month later, and a week after she was discharged, she died. Gloria found Megan's body when she arrived on Friday and brought groceries and medicine as usual. Elizabeth didn't even come to her mother's funeral, saying there were no flight tickets due to the peak season. She cried, called Gloria, and complained about life until Gloria blocked her cousin's number. Gloria paid for her aunt's funeral herself. Alec didn't mind. Gloria's mom came to the funeral with her son and took care of some of the expenses. A few months later, Elizabeth came back to the town. Gloria wasn't expecting her sister, but what was her surprise when Elizabeth showed up on her doorstep? Elizabeth was furious, and she had some documents in her hand. "What the hell does that mean?" Elizabeth asked instead of saying hello, bursting into Gloria's house. "What's going on?" Gloria looked at her furious cousin in confusion. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" "And why didn't you tell me? You blatantly tricked my mother." "What are you talking about? And don't raise your voice at me." Gloria was shocked at her sister's behavior. Elizabeth walked into the living room without taking her shoes off, sat on the couch, and handed Elizabeth a piece of paper. It was a copy of the will. Gloria read it quickly and understood that Aunt Megan had written a will, leaving the house to her niece. Her house now belonged to Gloria, who devoted all her time to her aunt for the last half year. "I didn't know about it," Gloria said honestly as she handed Elizabeth back a copy of the will. "Aunt Megan didn't tell me anything about it." "You're so sneaky," Elizabeth grinned. "You took advantage of my absence and forced my mother to write a will." Gloria was silent. Alec came out of the next room, having heard the yelling. He explained to Elizabeth why Megan did what she did. "Don't you know how many times Gloria drove across town to help your mom? Don't you know how much money she spent on medicine and doctor's appointments? She changed your mom's diapers and went to her at night when Megan wasn't feeling well. Gloria cried every night because she felt sorry for your mom. It hurt her to watch Megan suffer, realizing that her only daughter had traded her for a beautiful life. Do you have any idea how much the funeral you didn't even show up for cost? No? You don't know? Then shut your mouth and get out of here. Did you come for the inheritance? So you couldn't come to say goodbye to your mom. You couldn't come to her funeral, but you came to get the inheritance. I guess you were planning on getting the house and selling it, but Aunt Megan was wiser and fairer." Elizabeth said something and ran out of Gloria's house, promising to sue them. After her sister left, Gloria cried for hours in her husband's arms. He dared to say all the things Gloria herself couldn't, thinking that she might hurt her cousin's feelings. It turned out she didn't need too many words, and once they were said out loud, Gloria felt relieved. "Thank you," Gloria said quietly to her husband.